This is the 1.9 My MathLab Notes, and today we're going to be discussing properties of real numbers. The first property we'll be discussing is the commutative property of multiplication and addition, and that property says that changing the order of multiplication or addition gives the same answer. So, for example, 2 plus 3 equals 5 is the same as 3 plus 2 equals 5. And for multiplication, 3 times 2 is equal to 6, and that's the same as 2 times 3 equals 6. So changing the order gave us the same answer. And the second property we'll be discussing today is the associative property of multiplication and addition. That property says that changing the grouping or the parentheses of a multiplication or addition problem gives the same answer. So for example, the grouping 2 plus 3 plus 4 is equal to 9. In that problem, we would do 2 plus 3 first because it's in parentheses, and that's 5. And 5 plus 4 is 9. It's the same as 2 plus the grouping 3 plus 4. In that problem, we would do 3 plus 4 first, that's 7, and 7 plus 2 is also 9. So changing where the parentheses are in an addition problem does not change the answer. And the same is true for multiplication, as you can see by the example below. The last property we'll be discussing is the distributive property of multiplication over addition or over subtraction. For example, 2 times the grouping 5 plus 6 is the same thing as 2 times 5 plus 2 times 6. What we're using here is the distributive property. In the first one, I would do this parentheses first, and that's 5 plus 6 is 11, and 2 times 11 is 22. Well, that's the same thing as taking this 2 and multiplying it by both the 5 and the 6, and then adding the result. So 2 times 5 is 10, 2 times 6 is 12, and when I add those two together, I still get 22. So we can use the distributive property of multiplication over addition or over subtraction, as the next problem will show. In this problem, I would do 5 minus 6 first, which is negative 1, and 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Or I could do 2 times 5 minus 2 times 6, and I'll get the same answer. 2 times 5 is 10, 2 times 6 is 12, and 10 minus 12 is negative 2. This property will especially be helpful when we deal with variables in algebra. So the problems I'll be showing for you in your homework are numbers 3, 4, 7, 10, 14, and 16. So on number 3, it says to use the commutative property of addition to complete the statement. Remember, commutative property is changing the order of addition. So all we're going to do is change the order of this addition problem. Instead of 2x plus 20, we know that 20 plus 2x is the same thing as 2x plus 20. We'll get the same answer. So 20 plus 2x will give us the commutative property. Number 4 says use only the associative property to rewrite the following expression. Remember, associative property is parentheses. So we're going to change where the parentheses are in this problem. The parentheses in this problem are first around m times y, and then outside of the parentheses we've got times z. So we're just going to move the parentheses, keeping the order of the multiplication problem the same. So I can move the parentheses now to be around y times z. So m times parentheses y times z is using the associative property. Number 7 says to use both the commutative and the associative properties as needed to simplify the expression. Right now on number 7, 24 times y is in parentheses, and we cannot simplify that expression the way that's written because I cannot multiply 24 times y. So if I could move my parentheses to be around 1/3 times 24, and then put the y outside the parentheses, then I could do 1/3 times 24. And the associative property says it's okay for me to move those parentheses. So 1/3 times 24 is 8, and then I'll just put my y after it because I don't know what y is, so this expression simplified is 8y. Number 10 says to use the distributive property to write the expression without parentheses. So remember that anytime we have a number outside of a parentheses, we can multiply it by both numbers in the parentheses. Now, even though these aren't numbers, we can still rewrite this expression using the distributive property to be 6 times whatever x is plus 6 times whatever y is. Remember, we're going to use this plus that's in the middle. So 6 times whatever x is plus 6 times whatever y is. And that's as far as we can simplify it since we don't know the values of x and y. Number 14 is pretty similar to the one we just did. The only thing is there's not really a number outside of this parentheses for us to distribute with. But anytime you don't see a number, it's understood that that number is 1, because 1 times anything is itself. So really outside of this parentheses there's a -1. So we're going to distribute with -1. So -1 times 2x plus -1 times 5. Now we can finish simplifying this. -1 times 2x, since that's all multiplication, then I can rewrite that to be -1 times 2 times x plus -1 times 5. And -1 times 2 is -2, and I'll just put my x after it. And -1 times 5 is -5. That can't be simplified anymore, so this answer simplified is -2x plus -5. Now on number 16, we're going to go completely backwards, kind of undo the distributive property. The distributive property's already been done on this problem, and you can tell that they multiplied both of these by -2. So I know that -2 was outside of the parentheses, and what was in the parentheses was what's left here, the 1 plus the x. So 1 plus x. So that's the distributive property backwards. It's been undone. We call that factoring, and you'll get to that later when you get to Algebra 1C. So at this point, you need to do 1.9 homework numbers 1 through 20. Make sure you journal all your answers and show work on numbers 7 through 14.